Now, for what's tipping the scales of justice, we've got two big developments in the case of the Michigan mother accused of abandoning her three children in a house of filth. That mom is now facing additional charges this morning, and her bond has been drastically lowered. Officials say that Kelli Bryant left her three kids alone for years inside of a dirty, feces-filled townhouse in Pontiac, Michigan. The local sheriff expressing outrage when it happened.
That's going to be a very long process to figure this all out, not just how they are both mentally and physically, but how did this ever happen, to have these kids fall through the cracks on so many levels with relatives, the community, and with schools.
Bryant's already charged with 3 counts of first-degree child abuse, and now she's charged with welfare fraud as well, as police say she was collecting nearly $30,000 in payments between 2022 and 2025, and certainly not using those payments to help her kids. Doesn't that make you sick? Let's talk about how that may tip the scales in this case. Still with me, attorney Casey Early, and I want to welcome in attorney and the former director of Family and Children's Services in the state of Georgia, Mr. Tom Rawlings. Great to have you both here. Tom, let me begin with you on this one. Your thoughts on this case as a whole, and also on the new charges just tacked on for this woman.
Sure, Julie. I think certainly the new charges are yet another hammer against her, which is great. In general, I would agree with the sheriff. This is a situation in which these poor children fell through the cracks. They were essentially left alone to fend for themselves, maybe with some DoorDash or Instacart deliveries every week for 4 years. Can you imagine that? And yet, supposedly, Ms. Bryant, there were 2 fathers of the children who were around town. Supposedly, Ms. Bryant's family was in town. There obviously would be neighbors. These children were not in school, so no one bothered to say, hey, it's Christmas, where are my grandchildren? Hey, it's Christmas, I need to get toys to my children. Why aren't these children going to school each day?
Great points, Tom. Let's talk about that. I have some fast facts for you both here. So the garbage was piled as high as 4 feet. Mold, human waste found all throughout the house. The girls were found in the bathroom. Boys told the deputies their mother abandoned them in the year 2020 or 2021. The mother had contact with the boy, had not seen the girls in years. None of the kids attended schools, and the girls had not been outside of the house for years, hadn't even gone outside. The boy went outside to feel the grass and check the mail. Officials reported when they gave the children toothbrush and toothpaste and took them to the restroom after they were rescued, they didn't know how to brush their teeth or flush the toilet, and their toenails were so long they had trouble walking. Casey, I remember when we spoke to you first about this case, you were moved to tears about this one and what happened to these kids. What does it make you think when you hear that mom was getting money coming in and not using it to give her kids the basic necessities?
Yes, Julie, when I first heard this case, I didn't know the severity of the allegations, and it just really hurt my heart. And I went to court that day just thinking about this entire case, that almost $30,000 that should have been allocated to the children for basic necessities, not anything elaborate, and she spent it on herself. It makes me sick with the additional charges, let alone the foundation of the charges. And going back to what my colleagues stated, you had the grandparents, you had her siblings, which would have been their aunts and uncles. No one checked on these children. So not only were they neglected by mom, but they were neglected by their own family. And that is what hurts more emotional for these children. They're going to need long-term counseling in this case. And what also, this case also highlights the need for a check and balance system within the school system. Because had there been a way or some type of computer notification that these children are not enrolled either in homeschooling or regular school, they would have been found much sooner. And with her receiving these checks, there should have been maybe a monthly welfare check on the children, something so so many systems failed these children. I hope that the state of Michigan will implement more rules and regulations when you're receiving government assistance in order to check on those who should be assisted.
I love that point, Casey. Thank you for that. Tom, I see you nodding. I know you love that point too. Your thoughts, please.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with Casey. We had a situation kind of like this in Georgia one time where children were removed from the school system. They weren't going to school. They were they were found dead. It was terrible. But as she mentioned, in this situation, these children were at one point in school. That school received a request to transfer the children's records to another school, but it appears the children actually never went to school after withdrawing from the first school. So we in Georgia actually passed a law to try to improve that process so that if a child drops out of one school, that we are following to see whether or not the child is actually enrolled in homeschool or in another school. It's a really good point that she makes.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, that's awesome. You did that in Georgia, Tom. I hope other states follow suit. Gosh, this is horrible. I could talk to you both all day. Great conversation on such a tough story. Goodbye, and thank you to you both for your analysis.